Ma'am, step away from the vehicle. I'm loading my own car. My hands are visible. You're acting suspicious. I need your ID. Officer, I need you to tell me what crime you believe I'm committing. Stop being difficult. I'm not being difficult. I'm asking a legal question. You're under arrest. For what? For interfering with my investigation. Then do it, because every second of this is on that camera clipped to your chest. The body camera was rolling the entire time. Officer Travis Morley, 9 years on the force, didn't panic when he activated it. He thought it would protect him. He thought it would back up his story. He was wrong. The woman standing beside the silver Lexus in that Scottsdale shopping complex wasn't nervous. She wasn't confused. She wasn't searching for excuses. She was Judge Adrienne Cole, and she had spent the last 21 years on the federal bench. Before we go any further, drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from, your country, your city, wherever you are. And if you believe that accountability has to mean something, hit that subscribe button, because this story goes places you are not expecting. Adrienne Cole did not walk through life looking for confrontations. At 54 years old, she had earned everything the hard way. She had clerked for a federal appellate judge fresh out of law school, practiced civil rights litigation for 8 years, and then accepted a presidential appointment to the United States District Court, where she had presided over nearly 2 decades of complex federal cases, everything from federal corruption prosecutions to landmark Fourth Amendment rulings. On that Saturday afternoon, she was doing what millions of Americans do every weekend. She had spent a couple of hours at an upscale outdoor mall, picked up some home goods and a few birthday gifts, and was loading her bags into the trunk of her Lexus when she heard footsteps behind her. Ma'am, step away from the vehicle and keep your hands where I can see them. She turned slowly. Officer Travis Morley was approaching from her left, his right hand resting on his service weapon, not drawn, but ready. Adrienne's legal instincts activated immediately. She noted the body camera on his chest. She noted the position of his hand. She noted that she was in a well-lit, well-trafficked parking lot in the middle of the afternoon, doing nothing that any reasonable person could describe as suspicious. Is there a problem, officer? Someone reported a suspicious person in this area matching your description. I need to see identification. Adrienne stayed calm. What was the description? Black female, medium build, near luxury vehicles. Adrienne looked at him steadily. That's a description of a person standing in a parking lot. That's not a description of suspicious behavior. What crime am I suspected of committing? Morley didn't like the question. His jaw tightened slightly. Ma'am, I'm conducting an investigation. I need your ID. Under what legal authority are you detaining me right now? Because without reasonable articulable suspicion of a specific crime, this is an unlawful seizure under the Fourth Amendment. She said it plainly, not aggressively, the way a person says something they've said 100 times in courtrooms because they have. Morley stepped closer. Are you refusing to cooperate? I'm asking you a legal question. That's not refusal. That's my constitutional right. The body camera was recording every word. Morley didn't know it yet, but this moment, this exact exchange, would be played in training seminars across 3 states within a year. Have you ever been stopped by police while doing absolutely nothing wrong? Type yes or no in the comments right now. Adrienne made the same calculation that Black Americans across this country make every single day. She was standing in a parking lot with an officer whose hand was near his weapon. The legal argument could wait for a courtroom. Staying alive couldn't. Officer, I'm going to comply with your request, but I want to be clear that I believe this stop lacks any legal basis. I'm reaching slowly into my bag to retrieve my wallet. She moved deliberately, both hands visible. She pulled out her wallet, opened it, and handed Morley her driver's license. He looked at it, then he looked at the Lexus, then back at the license. Is this your vehicle? Yes. Prove it. She pressed the key fob, the lights flashed, the locks clicked, she pressed unlock, they opened again. She looked at him. Morley should have stopped there, the license matched the registration. The car responded to her key. There was no report of a crime, there was no stolen vehicle report. There was nothing. But Morley had made this stop in front of witnesses. People were slowing down. A teenage boy about 15 feet away had his phone out, filming. And now Morley was in the place that bad stops always lead to. The place where an officer has already committed the wrong and needs to justify it rather than correct it. Ma'am, I'm going to need to search your vehicle. I have reason to believe there may be stolen merchandise inside. Adrian's eyes narrowed. What reason? You've been acting evasive and uncooperative. That gives me reasonable suspicion. No, it doesn't. Asserting constitutional rights is not evidence of criminal behavior. That is settled law. Illinois v. Wardlow, Florida v. Bostic. You cannot use my refusal to consent as the basis for reasonable suspicion. That's not a gray area. That's black-letter law. Morley stared at her. Are you a lawyer? I'm a federal judge. The parking lot seemed to hold its breath for a second. A federal judge. United States District Court, District of Arizona. I've been on the bench for 21 years, and every single thing you've done since you walked up to this car is on that camera on your chest. Every word, every second. Morley's hand moved away from his weapon. His posture shifted. Something behind his eyes recalculated. I'm going to need to verify that. Call the federal courthouse. The main number is publicly listed. Ask for Chambers. They'll confirm it immediately. The teenager filming from across the lot had not lowered his phone. A woman pushing a stroller had stopped walking and was watching. A restaurant worker had stepped outside through a side exit and was looking over. Adrian reached back into her wallet and held out her federal court credentials. The official identification card issued by the United States courts, her photograph, her name, her title, the embossed federal seal. Morley took it. He looked at it for a long moment. This could be a forgery. His voice had changed. The authority was gone. What was left sounded more like a wish, as if saying the words might make them true. Call the courthouse, Adrian said again, or call your supervisor. I'd recommend the second option. Because whoever supervises you needs to be aware of what's happening here before it goes any further. What should the officer have done the moment she showed him the federal ID? Let me know below. Morley made his decision, and it was the worst decision of his professional life. Instead of calling his supervisor, instead of handing back the credentials and apologizing, instead of acknowledging what every second of footage on that camera was already documenting, he reached for his handcuffs. Turn around and place your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for interfering with a police investigation. Adrian didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. She turned slowly. She placed her hands behind her back. The metal clicked around her wrists. The teenager filming across the lot was now on the phone with someone. The woman with the stroller had taken her own phone out. The restaurant worker had gone back inside, presumably to tell someone. Morley walked Adrian to his patrol car. She didn't resist. She moved calmly, her head level, her face composed. She had ruled on dozens of wrongful arrest cases from the other side of that experience. She understood exactly how evidence was built, exactly what would matter later, and exactly how the next few hours were going to unfold. He placed her in the back seat. The plastic was hard. The car smelled like stale coffee and industrial cleaner. Adrian sat perfectly still and began mentally cataloging her legal strategy. Morley sat in the front seat. He picked up his radio, put it down, picked it up again, put it down again. He started the car. He drove in silence for 9 minutes. When they arrived at the precinct, Morley brought Adrian through intake. The duty officer on processing was a 14-year veteran named Sergeant Patricia Dunn. She had processed thousands of arrests. She had seen all kinds of credentials, real, fake, expired, misrepresented. When she opened Adrian's wallet during the property inventory and found the federal court ID, she looked at it for 3 full seconds. Then she looked at Adrian. Then she looked at Morley. "Where did you pick her up?" "Parking lot of the Scottsdale Commons." "What was she doing?" "Loading bags into her car." Dunn's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes did. "What's the charge?" "Interfering with an investigation." "What investigation?" "Suspicious person report." Dunn held up the federal credentials. "Did you call the courthouse to verify these?" "I thought they might be fake." Dunn set the credentials on the desk. She stood up, walked to the watch commander's office, and closed the door behind her. Captain Jerome Whitfield had been on the force for 23 years. He had handled difficult situations. He had managed controversial use-of-force cases, officer-involved shootings, and major civil complaints. But when Dunn walked in and laid federal judge credentials on his desk, something shifted behind his expression that didn't fully recover. He made 2 phone calls. The first lasted 4 minutes. The second lasted 90 seconds. Then he walked out to the processing area. "Judge Cole, I'm Captain Whitfield. I apologize. You're being released immediately." "What are the charges being filed?" "There are no charges." "I want documentation of this arrest. The call log that initiated the stop. Officer Morley's body camera footage, the dash cam footage, his written probable cause statement, everything." "You'll have it." "When?" "Tonight." Adrian was uncuffed. Her belongings were returned. She called an Uber from the precinct parking lot. Captain Whitfield followed her outside and apologized twice more before the car arrived. Adrian arrived home at 7:14 in the evening. She had been in custody for 2 hours and 41 minutes. She sat in her kitchen for a while. She thought about the thousands of people who had stood in exactly the same situation, handcuffed without cause, loaded into a patrol car, processed like a criminal, and had no credentials to show, no legal knowledge to invoke, and no resources to fight back. Then she picked up her phone. The first call went to the chief judge of the District of Arizona. The second call went to her college roommate, a constitutional law attorney with a national practice. The third call went to the ACLU. By Sunday evening, the incident was being discussed at the federal level. By Monday morning, the Scottsdale Police Department's legal team had already seen the body camera footage. By Monday afternoon, the city attorney's office had convened an emergency meeting. The lawsuit was filed Thursday morning. 26 pages, single-spaced, with time-coded references to the body camera footage, citations to controlling Supreme Court precedent, and a detailed accounting of every constitutional violation from the moment Morley first spoke to the moment Adrian was uncuffed in that precinct parking lot. The claims included unlawful detention, unlawful arrest, Fourth Amendment violations, 14th Amendment equal protection violations, and racial profiling. The city attorney read the complaint, then watched the footage, then read it again. She called an emergency meeting with the police chief and the city manager. Her assessment was direct. "This is indefensible. The camera captured everything. The plaintiff is a sitting federal judge who cited case law in real time during the arrest. We have no viable defense. We settle, and we settle fast." But before settlement talks could begin, the footage leaked. A local news affiliate got it first. Then national networks picked it up. Then legal publications, civil rights organizations, and law school professors started sharing it with commentary. The footage the teenage boy had filmed from the parking lot was already circulating separately, and within 36 hours of the story breaking nationally, it had been viewed over 11 million times. The comment sections were unlike anything anyone had seen. People shared their own stories. Legal scholars broke down each violation moment by moment. Civil rights activists pointed to it as a textbook example of what happens every single day to people who don't have federal credentials to hand over. Do you think $700,000 was enough for what happened to her? Drop your number in the comments. The Scottsdale Police Department opened an internal affairs investigation. It was assigned to their most senior investigator and took 5 weeks. They reviewed every second of footage. They analyzed the suspicious person call that started everything. They interviewed everyone involved multiple times. The findings were severe. The suspicious person call had been placed by a mall security guard who, when pressed during the investigation, admitted he couldn't identify any specific behavior that seemed criminal. He just felt she looked out of place near the luxury vehicles. When the investigator asked him to explain what that meant, he couldn't. Just a feeling, he said. Mullah had acted on that feeling. He had focused on Udrun without reasonable suspicion. He had continued the detention beyond any defensible time limit. He had requested consent to search without probable cause. He had arrested her for asserting constitutional rights that every American is legally entitled to assert. And the investigation didn't stop there. When they pulled Mullah's stop data from the previous 4 years, a pattern emerged that nobody in the department had ever formally reviewed. Mullah's rate of stops involving black drivers was 3.1 times the department average. His search rate of black motorists was 3.7 times higher. His arrests showed the same disparity. The data had been sitting in the department's own system for years, flagged by no one. Officer Travis Mullah was terminated 7 weeks after the arrest. The termination letter cited unlawful detention, unlawful arrest, racial profiling, violation of department policy, and conduct unbecoming an officer. He filed an appeal. His union representative reviewed the footage and told him plainly, "You're not going to win this. The video is unambiguous. The victim is a federal judge. Withdraw the appeal." He withdrew it. The Department of Justice Civil Rights Division opened an independent investigation into the Scottsdale Police Department's stop and search practices, not just Mullah's record, but the department-wide patterns. The investigation took 9 months and covered 6 years of data. The report was 104 pages. Black residents were stopped at significantly higher rates than white residents across the board, even when controlling for neighborhood crime rates and population. Black motorists were searched more than 3 times as often, despite being statistically less likely to be found with contraband. The department's early warning systems, which were designed to identify officers with problematic patterns before those patterns caused harm, had functionally failed. The department entered a federal consent decree. The reforms were comprehensive: mandatory implicit bias training across all ranks, a redesigned early warning system with actual enforcement teeth, a civilian oversight board with real investigative authority, mandatory audits of stop data by race, published quarterly, body cameras required on all uniformed officers, federal monitoring for 4 years. Udrun's lawsuit settled 11 months after the arrest. The settlement was $700,000. She donated every dollar to civil rights organizations focused on police accountability and legal representation for people who can't afford to fight back. In her only public statement, she said, "I don't need this money. I need the people who experience exactly what I experienced without credentials, without legal training, without the resources I have to be protected. That's what this needs to be about." The body camera footage is now required viewing at police academies across Arizona. It's used in law school constitutional law courses. Civil rights organizations screen it at community education events. Professors use it as a case study in what unlawful detention looks like in practice, word by word, second by second. One body camera, one parking lot, one afternoon. one terminated career, one $700,000 settlement, one federal consent decree, one department forced to confront years of systemic data it had been ignoring. Travis Mullah never worked in law enforcement again. A termination for cause made him effectively unhubbed at any other agency. He gave a single interview to a local outlet and claimed he had followed his training and that the judge had been uncooperative and combative. The reporter asked him if he had watched the body camera footage. He said he had. The reporter asked him to point to any moment in that footage where Udrun Cole was combative. Mullah didn't answer. Udrun Cole returned to the bench. Colleagues said she had always been thorough on civil rights issues. After the incident, she became even more precise, more attuned to the moments in testimony and in pleadings where the lived experience of racial profiling was either being seen or being dismissed. In private conversations with other federal judges, she has said this: "What happened to me was not exceptional. It was just documented. People go through exactly this every day, the same assumptions, the same escalation, the same helplessness, and they have no credentials to show and no resources to fight back afterward. That's why I pushed for the footage to go public. That's why the settlement went where it went." So it could mean something beyond one afternoon in one parking lot. The body camera he activated to protect himself became the most complete record of everything he did wrong. Every word, every second, every decision, all of it captured by the device on his own chest. What's your biggest takeaway from this story? Drop it in the comments. And if this opened your eyes to what racial profiling actually looks like on camera, make sure you're subscribed. We tell the stories that need to be heard. See you in the next one.